So I'm going to go now and I'm going to switch to another data set. So here's another, it's a small data set and it's got a bunch of points in it. And I've got edge of pavements here. I use that the same. I've got some catch basins, drain manholes. And I'm going to do the same thing with that code table. I can use the same code table. I've already got edge of pavement in there, but here's what I'm going to show you is I've got the same FLD file. And if I process this, the only thing I'm going to process is I've got a utility pole, driveway, and edge of pavement. So I hit OK, and it processes just that much. So you see my edge of pavements are here and my driveway is here. But that's all I've got in the code table so far. So a cool thing you can do to start building your code table is I can edit my codes. I can actually create a code table from the points in this data set. This is a real quick way to jumpstart your code table. And I'm going to append to what I have now. And that brought in all the descriptors that I have in this data set. And it makes some assumptions on each one of these. Now, I'm not going to go through and change each one of these, but I'm going to go through very quickly and add what the options are supposed to be included on this. So I have a catch basin. What you're looking at here is these columns can be controlled through these column options. And it's another way to edit your code table. And it makes a lot of sense to use this sometimes instead of clicking on each point. These are all the options that you can display in this kind of spreadsheet table here, and just click through them here without each individual item. Catch basin, I'm going to leave the layers and everything that came through when I did this, and I'm going to grab a symbol for each one of these things. It's a catch basin. I'm just going to use, there's a lot of different things in here that come with the software, but there's storm water, I think. That's sewer. You know what, I'm going to stick with this points table just to be quicker here so I don't run out of room digging through this. I'm just going to grab a square for a catch basin, edge of gravel, so I can see the entity type. I can just, from a drop down, I can change that to 3D and 2D. I can, the column options here, now I can switch this real quick to layer, distinct point layer, dual 3D polyline, turn that on. You can see break line. So I can edit this here by copy and paste there. So it's just a faster way. House, I'm just going to make that a 2D polyline. Same with a shed, 2D polyline. You can use those as break lines if you want. Drain manhole, I'm just going to pick a symbol for that. If I'm going too quick here, let me know. I'm just trying to step through these quickly. I'm going to ignore the trees for now. That's kind of a little bit of a different subject, so I'm just going to delete that. And I've got a nice video in Carlson Academy that shows you how to draw trees. So I would encourage you to watch that. It's kind of a separate lesson. I'm not going to worry about the trees. Drain manhole, I've got that. A light pole. Grab a symbol for that. That'll do. An iron pipe. Symbol. I like that one. And a concrete monument. with a drill hole. Depending on where you're working in, you might not have ever seen such a thing, but in Massachusetts, those are very common. They're a pain to set in the ground, I'll tell you. 4 foot long, 6 by 6 concrete post buried in the ground. There's a symbol for that right there. All right, so now you can start seeing I've got symbols in here, light poles, everything's starting to get symbols and line work. So you can see the line work is not doing what it's supposed to do. It's missing. This line should come around here. It should connect to the edge of gravel, go through the catch basins. It should not go across the road, so I need to break it there and come around here. So I'm going to edit this data set and try to correct some of this. So to do that, I'm going to show you another tool that we have under Field to Finish. And incidentally, this is all available in the pull downs or these ribbons. If you don't like using ribbons, you can turn those off. But it's called Field to Finish Inspector. And when I do that, what happens is all the codes in this data set, that's just what's in the code table, just what's in the data set shows up. And when I click on it, it shows you an instant. So I've got 4 catch basins in there, and I can click on each one of those and modify the description. So this only changes the description. That's all that you're going to be able to do with this routine. But it changes it and then redraws it one at a time. So it's a kind of a nice way, especially on a smaller data set, to update your descriptions. Now, what your goal here is not to spend time in the office modifying descriptions. And the purpose of this demonstration is not to show you just what to do in the office. I think what I'm really trying to get around is how you should be coding things in the field. So when you first start out, you're missing some of the coding. So what's going on here is 0.103 is not double coded. That's an edge of gravel and the edge of pavement. So what should have been done in the field is that should have been coded with two codes. So if I go to point number 3, but having said that, this little tool is a pretty nice way to go through and edit the codes. And you'll find when you first start out that there's a lot of this back and forth, and you need to communicate with the field crew and correct the way things are collected, and you're going to make lots of edits. And if you just stay the course and look down the road about 6 months from now, you will hardly be making any edits. This comes together very quickly. So the edge of on 0.103 should have been an edge of gravel. Now I've got the same zigzag instance here. 103 should go to 127, 104 should to 128. So I'm going to call that EOG1 and then space EP. That will double code this for edge of pavement and edge of gravel. If I hit apply, this is kind of a neat feature, is that you can actually click on update raw. It will go to your RW5 file and change the code in it. So if that's important, that be corrected in both places, well, all 3 places. It corrects it in the CRD, in the drawing, and in your RW5 file. You can use that option. But when I hit OK, it redraws it. So now it didn't redraw 127 because 127 hasn't been modified to an EOG1 yet. So let's go to 0.127 and just do that. That's a EOG1. So you see I've got that fixed. Now 0.104, same thing. It should have been double coded. That should be a EOG space EP. 105 is a catch basin. It is also an edge of pavement. So you can double code for both symbols and line work. So that line should go right through the catch basin. So that should be coded catch basin and edge of pavement. double code it. Now we come down to 0.106 where the line goes across. So now, as I demonstrated before, I could change all the EPs on this side of the road as EP1 or EP2, or I can go to 0.106 and say end. I didn't have to tell it to begin, but I can tell it to end. When I do that, I get the gap in the road. 0.109, again, is catch basin and edge of pavement. Same with 111. So that's got my line work actually corrected the way it was supposed to be corrected. One thing that's missing in here is this, again, should be a curved line. So 0.102 in here, that's probably the beginning of the curve. So you're going to make that judgment out in the field. If I go back to 102, all I need to do is add a space PC. And again, I'm going to get a 3-point arc first. So it curves from 102, 103 to 104, but then it goes back to a tangent. In this case, that looks correct. But if it looks fine actually, but actually if 105 was still in the curve, you could add the PT here. So I've already got a double code in here, and now I want to add a PT. So it's going to fit the curve from 102 all the way to 105. So the only thing about adding a special code under multiple codes is to just make sure you add the special code immediately after the code that you're modifying. It can't go after the CBN. So if you have multiple lines, so mostly your multiple coding has to do with line work. So if you have multiple lines connecting with each other, you want to make sure that you're modifying the correct code. You're hardly going to tell any difference with this, but slightly, it now curves all the way to 105. So what it does is, since that has the PT, it's going to look back to the PC and fit curve everything in between. All right, this is a house. Take a quick look at these other special codes. Couple special codes I'm going to make use of right now. One of them is the rectangle code. So I can't pull this out of the way, but I have a little shed down here. They shot 2/4 of the shed, and I can use the rectangle code to create a rectangle out of just 2 shots. The other one I'm going to use is the jog command. So a jog command can jog to the left or the right or straight any given distance. So I use it a lot for locating houses so you don't locate those inside corners. But you can like 2 points and say you can jog left or right. Left, it would be a negative value, and to the right, it'd be a positive value. So I'll demonstrate how to use that, both those two here. And I'm going to go back to Field to Finish Inspector to do so. So 0.120, there should be a jog 8 feet in for the house. And then it connects to 121 and then closes back out to 116. So let's start with 0.120. So it's a house, it's the code, it drew the line work, but I'm going to add the code jog. So it's house space jog, and then a distance to the left -8. And it's going to use in the order that you're connecting. So by default, it connects sequentially. There is an option to connect your points by nearest found and not sequentially. And you can make good use of that. In practice, I think that's the way my mind works. I'm thinking sequentially as I walk down the road in doing a survey. So sequentially works the best for me. And in situations like this, when you're thinking sequentially, I it's in order. So 119 to 120. So left is in this direction. So a -8 is going to create a jog to the left. If it was to the right, it would go in the other opposite direction. So I hit apply and it show you, and I get that little jog in there. So when I go to point 121, what that needs is the special code CLO, which closes the figure. Again, this is what way it should have been coded in the field. I'm not expecting that you're going to see any great time-saving dealing by drawing like this when you could have just drawn it manually. The idea here is to not be drawing back in the office. When you first look at this, you may think it's taking extra time in the field. That is really a myth. It will not take you extra time in the field once you get used to collecting the codes. I have yet to work with one single surveyor who ever wants to go back and connect the dots. So now the driveway should connect to that house corner. So 115 should go to point 116. So if I go to 116, so what's missing there? Well, the double code. So that should be a house corner and also a DRV. So there's my driveway coming into the house. So now I talked about the rectangle code. So I've got two shots on the shed corners. I've got 122 and 123. There's two ways to use the rectangle code. One way is to do what I'm going to do here, and that's shoot two corners and then tell it how wide to make the rectangle. The other way is to shoot three corners, and it will essentially make a parallelogram out of it and finish the fourth corner for you based upon the angle of the first side and the next side. It will create that fourth corner. So if in this case, it's going to make it a 90-degree angle. But in the other case, it can be whatever four-sided figure you happen to locate. So we go to point 123 because that's the second one in line. Again, sequentially, each out 122, 123, and it's the code is shed, and then it's jog, and in this case, it's jog. We shot the back of the shed, and it's going to be 8 feet wide down here. So that's to the right, because it's like as in the direction you're walking, or excuse me, that's to the left. To the right is what I meant to say, is over here. So 122, 123, in the direction you're walking, you take a shot there and you code it to the right. So jog 8 will make an 8-foot jog to the right. And I'm such an idiot. What I meant to do was the rectangle command, not the jog command. So I'm going to change that to RECT. That's just to make sure anybody was paying attention. So rectangle 8 works just like the jog command, but it completes the full rectangle. All right, that's special codes. That's multiple coding. And that is the beginning of your line work. So if you can get just this far with collecting your line work and getting your line work connected, that's a really, really good start. So the basic line work is connected. Then you can venture into the other special codes, and you can look at offsetting. If this was a curb line, you offset it horizontally and vertically. This is bothering me that this isn't curved here. So another way to make edits is to simply double click, but then I have to reprocess that. So that should be my PC. And it looks like that should be my PT all the way over there. When I do this field to finish, just process this again. There we go. There's a nice curved line. All right, I said I was going to look at trees separately, and again, there are quite a few videos I've made on field to finish under. If you haven't done it before, go to Carlson Academy and look through what we have there to offer video-wise. They're on YouTube. They're just a heck of a lot easier to find under Carlson Academy. But there's a specific one about drawing trees that I have in there. So it's 3:04 now. There's also some videos on much more options around these in descriptions. So right now, the only description I have is an IP for iron pipe. I'm going to steal just another second just to demonstrate what you can do with that description. So under iron pipe, I've got IP as the description, but I can have it say anything I want. So I can say iron pipe found. And when I process that, now it says iron pipe found. So you can have whatever your code is in the field can be anything you want it to say in the office. And so again, this by default, this is just part of the block. It's the attribute. You have an option that I prefer, honestly, to create a piece of text. So I'm not dealing with the attribute or the block itself. That way I can freeze those points and the blocks, or I mean, excuse me, and then I have left behind a piece of text and a separate symbol. And one last piece of information, then I'll stop and see if there's any questions, even though I always run late. But I want to point out that I have created, if you have ever looked at Carlson Community, there's a lot of good stuff in here that's free. And I created a couple code tables. I thought we shipped it with the software, and I'll make sure that on when our next release that we do that, but they're available right here. I've got a couple code tables, CSW with attributes and CSW with text, as I was describing using attributes here or text. There's more about that online, but these are I think they're a pretty good start if you want to get started with a field to finish. It's a pretty good code table to start with. It's fairly simple. It doesn't do too much, but it's a good code table to start with to give you at least an example of what a code table could do. We have others that ship with the software. These are just a little bit more complete. We also have DOT. If you code tables, these FLD files are all available. You click on these and you hit download and you get them for free. And I can see now, I'm very happy, there's actually been 22 downloads, which is not bad after about 5 years of having it up here. But most people don't know that that's available. And now I'm going to shut up and turn it over for any questions if anybody has that. Any?
We do have a couple of questions, Doug. Most of them relatively simple. We'll go back quite a ways here. When creating your field code list, if you select the non-surface checkbox there, for your points, will it exclude those points when running a surface?
Yes. Yep. Precisely what that's for. So anything like I actually, if I had a monument like this, I'd make it non-surface because I don't want if it's sticking up out of the ground 6 inches, I don't want that part of my surface model. But top of foundation, I have, you would have a code for first floor elevations. All those kind of things you select as non-surface, it will not be included in your surface model or contours.
Fantastic. Next question is, when you draw a building with field to finish, let's say your points are from 10 to 20 are for the building shots. Field to finish would connect 10, 11, 12, etc. But how do I set it to connect back to point 20, back to point 10, which is the last point back to the start?
Okay, it sounds like what I did here. So if that's easy, .clo, I mean space CLO for close. So what I did here is started at 116, 118, 19, 20. I put that little jog in there back to 21. And then CLO will close it back to the first point taken in that line sequence, by the way. So a CLO will not only just close that figure, it will end that line sequence. So I don't have to worry about using house 2 for if I had another one.
Fantastic. Yes, I think I was asked before you actually got to your house. But next question. After processing field to finish, deleting the points deletes the symbols field to finish drew. Is there a way to prevent this?
Yes. Yep. If I go back to here, now this is my preferred setup. And it is exactly that reason. So I can freeze or delete all these points and I still get my symbol. So that symbol is separate from the point entirely, and I have a piece of text. So this is my preferred method of using this. So I end up with an existing conditions plan that has symbols and text and no points in it. I do that to share with other clients and stuff like that, so they don't have to have all my point data, or perhaps maybe I don't want to give it to them. Some people don't. So to show you how I have that set up, this is my code table here, my code table. It's the one I set up for the company I'm working for. So I have categories over here. What I do is I take advantage of draw second symbol. So instead of putting the symbol here, which is connected to the point block, it's not 100%, but without going into great complications, this is more or less connected to the point block. This is associated with the point, but it's completely disconnected. So it literally draws it over the top. The only downside is if I wanted to know what point that was, if I double click on the symbol, it just sees it as a symbol. It has no point information associated with it. But that is actually my preference. That's the easiest way to do that. Take advantage of this option right here, draw a second symbol.
All right. It's almost like I lined that question up for you. I swear it wasn't rehearsed.
Yeah.
Fantastic. No, that should do it for questions, Doug.
Okay, great. And it's like there's just, you can add descriptions to the line work and to the symbols, and you can actually have it subtract invert elevations and label them for you, and from measure downs, like just all kinds of stuff. So give it a shot, give it a try. Feel free to download the code table I have. It's a decent start at least, or start with your own. Start simple, get going with it, and send me an email 6 months from now and let me know how good you're doing, because it's a fantastic program. It's a great money saver and efficiency builder for surveys if you're doing a lot of existing conditions plans anyways.